10 basketball players walked onto the court thinking it was just another day at the office, but they never walked off.
Alabama state troopers are investigating a crash that killed a former Triad basketball player.
And I'm not talking about career-ending injuries or retirements. I'm talking about players who literally died on the court or from basketball-related incidents that'll make your skin crawl. Look, I know what you're thinking. Another goofy clickbait video about basketball tragedies. But nah, homie, this type shit is different. These are real stories about real people who had families, dreams, and futures that got snatched away in the most heartbreaking ways possible. And the crazy part? Most of these deaths could have been prevented if people had just listened to the warning signs. By the time we get to number 1, you're gonna understand why some people say basketball can literally be a matter of life and death. So buckle up, gang, because we're about to dive deep into some of the most tragic moments in basketball history that'll change how you see the game forever. Yo, let me break it down for you about Maurice Stokes. This dude was basically the LeBron James of the 1950s, no cap. We're talking about a 6'7" forward who could literally do everything on the court. This man was different, fam. In just 3 seasons, and I mean 3, this guy accomplished what most players can't do in their entire careers. 1956, NB, a Rookie of the Year, 3-time NBA All-Star, made it every single year he played. 3-time All-NBA second team. His second season, homie set a league record with 1,256 rebounds. That's 17.4 per game. Career stats that'll blow your mind. 16.4 points, 17.3 rebounds, 5.3 assists per game. But here's what made Stokes special. He pioneered the point forward role before anyone even knew what that was. As a rookie, this man recorded a triple-double of 26 points, 38 rebounds, and 12 assists. 38 rebounds in one game. Bob Cousy, the NBA legend himself, said Stokes was the first great athletic power forward. He was Karl Malone with more finesse. Now here's where the story gets dark, and I mean dark. March 12th, 1958, the last game of the regular season. Stokes drives to the basket, draws contact, and bam! Hits his head as he falls to the court. He's knocked unconscious. They revive him with smelling salts. And you know what this absolute warrior does? He comes back and plays the rest of the game. 3 days later, they're in the playoffs against Detroit. Stokes puts up 12 points and 15 rebounds, still balling, even after that head injury. But on the flight back to Cincinnati, something goes terribly wrong. Picture this. You're on a plane, you start feeling dizzy and sweaty. Then, Maurice Stokes, this 6'7" beast of a man, turns to his teammate and says, "I feel like I'm going to die." Those were his actual words, family. He literally predicted what was happening to him. Instead of waking up at home, Stokes wakes up a week later in a hospital bed, completely paralyzed. The only things working, his eyes and his brain. Everything else, gone. The head injury caused his brain to swell, and when he got on that airplane, the cabin pressure made it worse. The swelling cut off oxygen to the parts of his brain that control movement and speech. Imagine being a world-class athlete at 24 years old, then suddenly you can't move or speak, but you're fully aware of everything happening around you. That's what happened to Maurice Stokes. But here's where the story gets beautiful in the most heartbreaking way. His teammate, Jack Twyman, and I'm telling you right now, this man is the definition of loyalty, became Stokes' legal guardian. For 12 years, Twyman took care of him, organized charity games, paid medical bills out of his own pocket, visited constantly. The first charity game in 1958, more than 60 NBA players showed up. Wilt Chamberlain flew from Paris, where he was playing with the Globetrotters, to New York, chartered a helicopter to the game, played, then flew back to Europe, all on his own dime. That's how much respect Maurice Stokes had. For 12 years, Stokes lived in that hospital bed, gradually learning to speak again, regaining some hand movement but never walking again. On April 6, 1970, at age 36, he died of a heart attack, half his adult life spent paralyzed in a hospital bed. Today, the NBA gives out the Twyman Stokes Teammate of the Year award every year, honoring the man who was paralyzed and the teammate who never left his side. Reggie Lewis was supposed to be the next Larry Bird. When Bird retired, Lewis was the chosen one to carry the Boston Celtics into the future. This dude was special, 6'7" shooting guard who could score from anywhere, play elite defense, and take over games when it mattered most. Coming out of Baltimore's legendary Dunbar High School, the same school that produced Muggsy Bogues and other NBA stars, Lewis went to Northeastern University and became their all-time leading scorer with 2,708 points. The Celtics drafted him in 1987, and by his second season, he was averaging 18.5 points per game. By 1992, he was an all-star, averaging over 20 points per game. The Celtics had built their entire future around this man. April 29, 1993, Game 1 of the playoffs against Charlotte. Lewis is playing when suddenly he just collapses on the court, just drops. They get him up, he sits on the bench, comes back in the second half, gets dizzy again, and they pull him for good. The doctors examine him and deliver devastating news: focal cardiomyopathy, a serious, potentially fatal heart condition. They tell him straight up, your career is over. If you keep playing, you will die. But Lewis wasn't having it. He got a second opinion, and this new doctor diagnosed him with neurocardiogenic syncope, a non-fatal condition that just causes fainting. This doctor said he could keep playing. Lewis chose to believe what he wanted to hear. He started training for the 1993-94 season. July 27, 1993, off-season practice at Brandeis University. Lewis is just doing a pickup game with friends, training to come back. He's 27 years old, has a wife and young children, and his whole life ahead of him. 2 police officers found him on the court and tried mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. It was too late. Reggie Lewis died on that basketball court during practice. The real cause? Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the same condition that would later kill other players. The first doctor was right. If Lewis had listened and retired, he'd probably still be alive today. The Celtics retired his number 35, and his contract stayed on their salary cap for 2 more years, because the NBA didn't even have rules for what happens when an active player dies. That's how rare this was. Conrad McRae is probably the least known player on this list, but his story might be the most tragic because he knew exactly what was going to happen to him. This 6'10" center from Syracuse had one dream: play in the NBA. But he had a massive problem: heart arrhythmia. His heart would beat irregularly, causing him to faint during practices and workouts. The Washington Bullets drafted him in 1993, but they cut him before he ever played a single NBA game. Why? Because doctors told him the same thing they told everyone else on this list: stop playing basketball or you will die. McRae's response? No, I'm not giving up my dream. So he went to Europe and dominated. Turkey, Greece, Italy, France. This man was a star overseas. He was one of the best American players in European basketball. 1999, the Denver Nuggets gave him one more shot, a 10-day contract. This was it, his chance to finally play in the NBA. But right before his first game, he fainted again. Then during a stress test at the hospital, he fainted again. The Nuggets cut him immediately. Doctors told him again, you need to stop, this will kill you. McRae said, no, I'm going to keep playing. Summer 2000, Southern California Summer Pro League. McRae is 29 years old, trying one more time to get noticed by NBA scouts. July 10th, 2000, he's running sprints during practice when he collapses. He died on the court. Conrad McRae spent his entire adult life chasing his NBA dream, got drafted but never played, dominated in Europe for years, got a 10-day contract but fainted before he could play, kept trying in summer leagues until it killed him. He never got to play a single minute in the NBA, but he died doing what he loved, even though multiple doctors told him it would kill him. Jason Collier is different because he didn't die on the court. He died at home in bed next to his wife. But the cause was the same deadly heart condition that's been killing basketball players for decades. This 7-foot, 260-pound center from Ohio was Mr. Basketball in high school, went to Georgia Tech, and got drafted 15th overall by Milwaukee in 2000. After bouncing around as a backup for a few years, he finally became a starter with the Atlanta Hawks in 2004. This was supposed to be Jason's breakout year. He had worked his way from third-string backup to starter, had a 7-year, $33 million contract, was married with a 2-year-old daughter named Ella. Life was perfect. October 15th, 2005, preseason regular season hadn't even started yet. Jason goes to bed at his home in Georgia with his wife, Katie. Their daughter is asleep down the hall. In the middle of the night, Jason starts having trouble breathing. Katie calls 911 and starts doing CPR on her 7-foot-tall husband. Imagine that scene. Your husband is gasping for air. You're trying to save his life while your 2-year-old is sleeping in the next room. Paramedics arrive and rush him to the hospital. He dies in the ambulance. Jason Collier was 28 years old. The autopsy showed his heart was 1.5 times bigger than it should have been, even for a man his size. The enlarged heart caused an irregular heartbeat, which caused sudden cardiac death. Here's the crazy part. EKGs done on Collier in 2003 and 2005 showed electrical abnormalities. The state's chief medical examiner said if someone had looked closer at those tests, they might have found the enlarged heart and saved his life. The Hawks kept his locker intact all season and created the Jason Collier Award for community service, honoring a man who died at 28 while sleeping next to his wife. Zeke Upshaw's death in 2018 is still fresh in people's minds because it happened so recently and because it exposed major problems with how the G League handles medical emergencies. Zeke was a grinder from Chicago, 6 feet 6 inches shooting guard who went undrafted in 2014 and had to work for everything. He played in Slovenia, Luxembourg, averaged over 20 points per game overseas, then finally got a shot at the NBA G League in 2016. 2017-18 season with the Grand Rapids Drive, Detroit's affiliate team. Zeke was a key rotation player averaging 8.5 points, and the Drive made the playoffs. March 24th, 2018, last game of the regular season against Long Island. The Drive needed to win to secure their playoff spot. Zeke was playing well when suddenly in the final few minutes, he just collapsed. But here's where it gets controversial. Witnesses said it took several minutes before medical staff started CPR. Several minutes. In cardiac arrest situations, every second matters. By the time he got to the hospital, too much time had passed. March 26, 2018. 2 days later, Zeke died. He was 26 years old. The cause? Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the same condition that killed Reggie Lewis. Zeke's family sued the NBA and Detroit Pistons, claiming the G League didn't have proper medical staff and the response was too slow. They settled out of court. After Zeke's death, the NBA made major changes. Better medical screening, required defibrillators at all games, better emergency protocols, more medical staff. Zeke's death changed the G League forever. The Detroit Pistons gave him an honorary call-up for their next game. Even though he was dead, they listed him on the roster and did a tribute. The entire organization mourned a G League player they'd never met. Zeke spent years grinding overseas, finally got his shot at professional basketball in America, was 1 game away from the playoffs, and collapsed in the final minutes of the final regular season game. Now we're getting into the stories that really changed basketball forever. Hank Gathers wasn't an NBA player, but his death in 1990 shocked the entire basketball world and led to major changes in how we screen athletes for heart conditions. Gathers was a 6'7" forward at Loyola Marymount who could do everything: score, rebound, pass, defend. He was the heart and soul of one of the most exciting college basketball teams ever assembled. In 1989, he became the second player in NCAA history to lead the nation in both scoring and rebounding in the same season. But Gathers had a secret that would eventually kill him. During a game in December 1989, he collapsed on the court. Doctors diagnosed him with an abnormal heartbeat and put him on medication to control it. Here's where it gets tragic. The medication made him feel sluggish on the court. So Gathers, against medical advice, stopped taking his heart medication because he wanted to play at his best level for his team. March 4th, 1990, West Coast Conference Tournament. Loyola Marymount is playing Portland. Gathers throws down a thunderous dunk, starts running back down the court, and suddenly collapses. He never got back up. Hank Gathers died on the court at age 23, and it changed everything. His death led to mandatory cardiac screening for college athletes and raised awareness about sudden cardiac death in young athletes. Benji Wilson's story is different because he didn't die from a medical condition, he was murdered. But his death was so tragic and had such an impact on basketball that it belongs on this list. Wilson was the #1 high school basketball player in America in 1984. This kid from Chicago was 6 feet 8 inches, could play any position, and was being recruited by every major college program. He was supposed to be the next great Chicago basketball legend. November 20th, 1984, the day before his senior season was supposed to start. Wilson and his girlfriend were walking near his high school when 2 teenagers tried to rob them. When Wilson refused to give up his jacket, one of the robbers shot him. Benji Wilson died the next day at age 17. He never got to play his senior season, never went to college, never made it to the NBA. The #1 player in America, killed over a jacket. His death shocked Chicago and the entire basketball community. Today, there's a park named after him in Chicago, and his story is still told as a reminder of how violence can destroy young lives and dreams. Drazen Petrovic wasn't American, but his impact on the NBA was huge. This Croatian shooting guard was one of the first European players to truly succeed in the NBA, paving the way for guys like Dirk Nowitzki and Luka Doncic. Petrovic could flat out shoot. We're talking about a 6'5" guard who shot 44% from three-point range in his NBA career. He was just hitting his prime with the New Jersey Nets, averaging over 22 points per game. June 7th, 1993. Petrovic was riding as a passenger in a car on a German highway when the driver fell asleep. The car crashed into a truck. Petrovic was killed instantly at age 28. This wasn't a basketball-related death, but it robbed the NBA of one of its rising stars and showed how quickly everything can change. Petrovic was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2002. Len Bias might be the most tragic story in basketball history because of what could have been. This 6'8" forward from Maryland was drafted second overall by the Boston Celtics in 1986, the same Celtics team that had just won the NBA championship. Bias was supposed to be the missing piece that would keep the Celtics dynasty going for another decade. He had the size, athleticism, and skill to be a superstar. Some people compared him to Michael Jordan. June 19, 1986, 2 days after being drafted by the Celtics, Bias was celebrating with friends at the University of Maryland. He used cocaine for what his friends said was the first time in his life. The cocaine triggered a fatal heart arrhythmia. Len Bias died at age 22, 2 days after being drafted, without ever playing a single NBA game. His death shocked the nation and led to major changes in drug policy and education. It also destroyed what could have been one of the greatest NBA careers ever. Looking at all these stories, there's a pattern that's impossible to ignore, and it's gonna mess you up when you really think about it. Most of these players had warning signs, fainting spells, abnormal heart tests, doctors telling them to stop playing, but they ignored the warnings because they loved the game too much. Maurice Stokes played through a head injury that should have ended his game immediately. Reggie Lewis ignored doctors who told him he'd die if he kept playing. Conrad McRae fainted repeatedly, but refused to quit. Jason Collier had abnormal EKGs that nobody took seriously enough. The truth is, sudden cardiac death in young athletes is more common than people think, especially in basketball. The intense physical demands of the sport can trigger fatal heart conditions that players don't even know they have. Here's what's really crazy. 4 out of 5 of these players died from heart conditions. Only Maurice Stokes died from a traumatic injury. We're talking about hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, enlarged hearts, heart arrhythmias, conditions that affect about 1 in 500 people, but are more common in African Americans. Most people don't know they have these conditions until it's too late. Athletes push their hearts harder than normal people, and intense exercise can trigger sudden cardiac death. The condition often isn't detected until someone collapses on the court. Today, the NBA has much better medical screening, required defibrillators at all games, and protocols for handling cardiac emergencies. But these changes came too late for the players we've talked about today. These weren't just statistics or news stories. These were real people with families, dreams, and futures that got cut short. Maurice Stokes spent 12 years paralyzed in a hospital bed. Reggie Lewis died chasing a comeback that doctors told him would kill him. Zeke Upshaw collapsed in the final minutes of the final game of the season. The next time you're watching a basketball game and a player goes down with an injury, remember these stories. Remember that sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't the team across the court, it's the medical condition you don't know you have. And if you're a young athlete watching this, please listen to your doctors. Your dreams are important, but your life is more important. These players thought they were invincible, but basketball doesn't care how talented you are or how much you love the game. The court took them all too soon, but their stories live on as reminders that sometimes the bravest thing an athlete can do is walk away. Rest in peace to all the players we lost too soon. Their legacies remind us that basketball is just a game, but life is everything. What do you think about these tragic stories? Have you heard of any of these players before? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure you subscribe because we've got more deep dives into basketball history coming your way. Until next time, appreciate every moment on the court. You never know when it might be your last.